Ms. Eugene.
Yes, ma'am.
Morning. Oh.
Yeah, just if you're talking first.
Oh, she's.
All right, we're all in the room.
Good morning. Could y'all fax over a list of the guests that Ms. Eugene has there?
Yes. We did, yes, ma'am.
It's on. All right, good morning, Ms. Eugene. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and your scene number, please.
Good morning.
You can,
I can say. My name is Laura Eugene. My DOC number is 464-656.
Counsel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Goldstein. I'm a student attorney with Tulane Law School's Women's Prison Project.
Okay. And I don't have the list yet. Oh, here it is. Let me just recognize the folks who are there at LCIW. Let's see. Some of the, with Tulane, Anna Carter, Rebecca Goldstein, Emily Beasley, and Stanislaw, is it Moore?
Yeah, Moroz. Good morning. Good morning.
Okay. And then we have Miss Eugene's brother and niece. Is it Floyd Eugene?
Yes, ma'am.
And Yolanda is also there. We have some folks here in Baton Rouge with us. We have here in support, we have the Parole Project, Floyd Eugene, Sharon Eugene, Savannah Eugene, Aika King and family. Also here today representing the victim, we have Reginald Fluence, Thomas Fluence, and Ms. Eugene, you've been through the process before with your clemency hearing, but let me just go over it for the parole hearing for those who are here. I'll read some information, identifying information into the record, ask you to confirm it, and we'll conduct a parole interview with you. We'll get some input from the warden. We'll hear from all the folks who've indicated they'd like to speak today. And at the end, you would be allowed to make a statement if you'd like to before we turn it over to your attorney to close it out for us.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Eugene, you're classified as a first felony offender. You are currently serving a 99-year sentence, having your sentence commuted on July 29, 2022 by Governor Edwards for a second-degree murder conviction in St. John Baptist Parish. So your parole eligibility date was October the 2nd, 2022. You have a good time date, January 20th, 2086, with a full-time date in October of 2101. Is all that information correct?
Yes.
So, Ms. Eugene, your case was assigned to me, so I'll start the interview with you. So you, how old are you, William?
How old are you?
62.
You too. And how long have you been in jail?
20 years.
20 years. And so when you were seen by the pardon board last, the commutation was to commute your sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility after having served 30. However, there was some law changes since then, which made you parole eligible, as I said, sooner than that, on October 2nd, 2022.
That's right.
Okay. So since your last hearing, when were you seen by the pardon board?
When was it, 2019 or?
Oh, 2018.
So what programs have you been able to do since your pardon hearing?
What programs have you done since your pardon hearing?
Okay. I took up reentry and parenting. I took up substitute class. I took up classes
That's
program.
been since your last hearing? For the pardon board?
She completed Celebrate Recovery life of a single mom and thinking for a change since her pardon hearing.
Okay, thank you. So Miss Eugene, out of those classes, which one was the most important to you?
Substance abuse.
And why was that? Why that?
I want to learn about the program because I like to take care of kids that are sick and gets on drugs. It's the reason why I learned, and I want to know more about it. So I took the class to help others.
Celebrate Recovery class.
Yes, ma'am.
So at the time, this was your only arrest, is that correct?
Right.
Where did you use or abuse illegal substances?
She said,
Drugs?
On the street, did you use drugs or alcohol?
no, not at all.
You were made aware at your pardon hearing that there is some opposition to an early release. And I need to tell you that that opposition is still there by law enforcement and by the prosecutor. The prosecutor, the district attorney, has indicated or suggest that you participate in some additional programming. And these are the specific programs that they've listed: work release, or moral recognition therapy, drug rehab treatment, which you did with substance abuse, vocational training, the reentry program, which you've done the 100 hours, and a mental health wellness program. Do you currently see mental health at all?
Do you currently see mental health?
Yes.
How often do you see mental health?
I don't understand what you mean by that.
How often do you see your caseworker? She's not on any
I'm
mental
not
health
on it.
medications. No, ma'am, she's not.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Roche had a question.
Good morning, Ms. Eugene.
Good morning.
Good morning. Were you married to the victim?
No, ma'am. No, sir. We
How
live
long,
together.
how long had you been in a relationship with the victim?
We've been in a relationship for a long time,
How long, Ms. Eugene?
many years,
Do you know about how many years?
about 12, 13, maybe 15 years.
Continuous? Was that 12 or 13 years continuous?
Continuously or on and off?
On and off.
Did you live under the same roof?
Yes.
At any time during the 12 or 13 years, were there any domestic abuse issues in the household?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Back in we lived together for a long time, me and him. But also he have a problem when he start drinking, when he get high. And he like to fight, like put his hands on women. Through the time I lived with this man, he kept hurting me. It's a situation that you have to keep dealing with, and I got tired dealing with it. And I was trying to protect myself at the time. And he threw me down the coffee table, choked me, so I couldn't barely breathe. So I realized that I got up and I went and got a knife. And I stabbed Mr. Florence. And I take his full responsibility for my action, what I did to the family. They both.
At any time, Ms. Eugene, were your children victims of this domestic abuse?
It was at the time, yes, it was going through a whole lot. When my boyfriend was beating me, they was getting upset about it.
How many children that were born to this relationship?
I had 3 living with me and my 3 boys. My daughter, she was a baby at the time, she was young. And my other son, he was by my sister. So I just had the 3 that's live with me, my 2 oldest ones. And Terrence.
Was there a time in this relationship when you got hit by an automobile?
No, sir.
But there was continuous domestic abuse in the household.
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you leave, Miss Eugene?
I don't know, I was being crazy, being stupid, and I was in love, and I just wanted him to stay with me with the kids.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you answering my question, and I appreciate your honesty. Thank you.
Miss Eugene, what's your level of education?
Educate. She's currently been trying in literacy. She's currently enrolled in literacy. She has tried on a few occasions, but Ms. McGovern has put a note into her file that she'll just have to continue on with literacy. She wouldn't, at this point, in the near future, would probably not receive her a high set.
Thank you. No. Okay, Warden Thomas, is there any input you could offer?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Eugene here, she works in our kitchen. She has, like we mentioned before, just from her pardon hearing, she has completed Thinking for a Change and Celebrate Recovery. Her last DB write-up was in 2015, and she is planning on working with the Parole Project. I think Ms. Jeremy is on today to speak on that behalf for when she releases.
So we're going to hear from the folks who are here to support today, and we'll hear from Ms. Jeremy with the Parole Project. Jeremy? Christy?
Speak loud and clearly right now. Can you hear us, Warden Thomas?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. We just can't see the parole board on anymore.
Warden Thomas, can you hear us now?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Speak loudly and right.
Okay. I apologize, we're having some audio issues on our end. So we, while Ms. Jeremy is trying to connect, could we hear from Mr. Floyd? James? Is he there with you?
Yes, ma'am, he's coming up to the mic. If you'd like to say anything in support.
Yes, I just want to say Laura's She's a good person. I mean, she will give you the shirt off her back. I mean, strangers, she don't even have to know you. She just gonna take you into her heart. And I just want to say, I'm my baby brother. She took care of me from, you know, when my mom was sick, and she took care of me, made sure I went to school. You know, she used to walk through school. Come 3 o'clock here, she'll come there and give me, and you know, she'll have my food ready. She just took care of me. As her kids, she adored those kids. Those kids never wanted for nothing. She always put everything in her household first, you know, and that's just the way she is. You get to know her, you'll know what I'm talking about. She's a really good person.
Yes, sir, thank you. We appreciate your input. Is Ms. Jeremy back with us? Devonna. Step up here. Good morning. We should speak loudly, please.
I'm the daughter of both David Thorne and Laurie Thorne. I've had to grow up without both my mom and my dad, who I lost when I was 5 years old. I am part of the Victor family too, and I'm hoping that my mother will be granted. I have very good memories with my mother outside of the school. I remember when I was a little girl, there would be these events on a holiday for their children and grandchildren. I would be able to walk freely around the compound. My hair would be freshly styled and combed, but my cousins would tell me all the time how my mom would be really good at doing my hair. So my mom would take down my freshly styled hair and do it all over again because I just wanted my mom to do what mom did. Style their kids' hair. I hope that today will be the beginning of the end of a very long, painful, and traumatizing journey of only having a mother of a relationship my mother did. I'm praying and hoping that I can talk to her for more than just 15 minutes of the day. And I'm hoping that this will be the last time I have to wait to see my mother for an hour. When I was a little girl, I would have dreams that my mom was home with my brothers and I. The dream would be so vivid that if she was cooking, I would be able to smell the food, only to wake up and it not be in my reality. I've also dreamed of my dad, David. I remember he would call me and my sister Devonna, Baba, and Stockton. I have a lot of good memories with my dad, but I also remember him treating my mom in ways that scared me. I witnessed things that a child my age could never witness, and I have memories that I have tried to tuck away. My heart became away. Unfortunately, I did not have the chance to reunite with him, but today I'm looking for a chance to reunite with my mother outside of the prison. My family and I miss her tremendously. I go throughout my day wondering what she's doing. Hopefully, after today, I no longer have to wonder. Hopefully, I will be able to walk into the next room and she will be there. She now has 7 grandkids. 2 of them are mine. Ava and Andre. Ava looks forward to seeing her when we go twice a month. As soon as we get into the cafeteria, she will run and grab some crayons. Elementary coloration. That will be the environment. She knew grandma will color for her for the whole hour if you want her to. I'm hoping and praying that my daughter won't have to go up only knowing her grandmother to put illustration. My son, Andre, who's 1. I haven't even gotten a chance to meet his grandmother. That hurts me to cool. Hopefully my kids and my nieces and my nephews get a chance to get to do what my brothers and I did. Develop meaningful relationships with their grandmother. If she's running parole today, she plans on residing with the parole project. And after I'd be more than happy to have her live with me and provide support in any way that's needed. I'm a branch ambassador at Capital One. And I'm also owner of Capital Tour, a women's program. My mother had a lot of support for about 20 people gathered at my home to shows. because what she will be alone. Unfortunately, all of them can make today with their wife and supporting. Thank you for your consideration today. Thank you for finding your heart and have mercy on my heart.
Okay, did Christie get to dial in? We'll note for the record that the parole project has tried to dial in, but that Ms. Eugene does have support and there is a transition plan with them. And maybe Ms. Goldstein can expand on that at the appropriate time. So now we'll hear from the opposition. Could we hear from Mr. Thomas Fluence?
I need to give you my name.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thomas Fluence. I'm the father of David. And I'm here on his behalf. He can't speak to me, but I can speak on his behalf. He was taken away from me at the age of 22. And he won't be returned. I don't know exactly how the system works. I hear all kinds of things about it. New laws, this, that, and the other. But the fact is, he won't return. And he also left 3 children behind by his first wife. They were really young at that time too. This young lady here, the girl that she's talking about, they're about the same age. And they all were young. And they're still young people today, but without a father that will ever return. So I just want to convey to y'all, Miss Eugene murdered my son. And then she got life in prison without the benefit of parole. Then she had her sentence reduced to 99 years. And now they tell me that she's up for parole when she got a 30-year sentence that's still on her. And now she's trying to get out 11 years early of those 30 years. Tell you the truth, I would like to see her do those 30 years. I am not in this thing for revenge. Because to start out with, when we were in court, the district attorney came to us to see if we wanted to give them the plea bargain. We agreed to give them the plea bargain. They were fearful and didn't take it. She take God to tell what the judge would have gave her. But we never was after life. I'm not after life right now, but I would love to see her and like to see her finish that 30-year sentence that the government put on. I mean, my son, he won't return. 30 years versus a lifetime in the ground. And I pray and hope that you all consider that he won't be returning. This lady is here. She's alive and well. People can come to see her, visit her, and she will be looking at a relief date somewhere along the line. But I hope it be after 30 years. I pray to y'all and ask you to consider what I'm saying here and let that be. You can't go around doing stuff like this without consequences. There are consequences to every action. And you must realize that before you do what you do. You see? And I think 30 years in prison for the death of any person is not too much. And I thank y'all for your patience. I ask you to please consider what I'm saying here today.
Thank you, Mr. Fluence.
My son is gone. He won't be back.
Mr. Reginald?
Now it's ready. Come on. My dad, he said it all. I'm getting up here. I don't have the girl. I forgive her for what she did. I don't have her on my heart. I just like to see do a time. Really good.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have, I believe, by phone, the Parole Project. Ms. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning, honorable board members. I do apologize for whatever issues that we're having. Christy Jeremy here with the Louisiana Parole Project. We are in support of Miss Eugene's release, if granted. We are definitely committed to helping Miss Eugene throughout her transition plan. We will provide housing along with programming that is going to be needed as she moves forward. And we're in hopes that with Miss Eugene's release that we will be able to provide those services that are needed. For several decades throughout my incarceration, I was able to build relationship with Miss Eugene, and I definitely identify with the need. And I am committed, along with the Parole Project, to be a service unto her and connecting her with all of the proper resources that she needs, and along with case management for however long it is needed. And I just want to thank y'all for your time. And again, I do apologize for the issues that we've had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Miss Eugene, is there something you'd like to say to the parole panel before we turn it over to Ms. Goldstein?
Yes, I'd like to say something to the Weldon family, to the Fluid family. I want to say that I am very, very sorry. I put you through a lot of pain, and I take full responsibility for my actions on both sides of the family, including mine and his. If I would change the subject all over again, I wouldn't be right here. I just ask you to just forgive me. I understand your feeling or your pain. But I am truly, truly, deeply sorry for my action. And you have a right that I do deserve time, but also I change. I'm not that person any longer. I'm totally different. I learned a lot of things incarcerated. These people taught me a lot of stuff I ain't never taught before at home. I learned what they done for me here. They showed me learn how to read. I don't know how to read. That's why I need a lot of help, for people to help me, to get me on my feet, on my journey, to show me the way. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Goldstein?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I want to just start by acknowledging the pain that Miss Eugene has caused the Fluence family. Although she struggles at times to express herself, she truly recognizes how her actions have caused deep pain and grief to them. Despite years of abuse, she cared for Mr. Fluence, the father to her only daughter, Davana. She is deeply remorseful, as you've heard today, and wishes more than anything that she could take that pain back. Since coming to prison, Miss Eugene has worked hard to understand the pain that she's caused and to be a positive influence in her community. She has dedicated the past 2 decades at LCIW to improving her education, growing spiritually and emotionally, and being a mother and grandmother from behind prison walls. Before I highlight some of Miss Eugene's growth, I would like to just acknowledge a few of the board's concerns. First, as you know, Miss Eugene struggles to express herself and answer some of the questions today due to her intellectual disability. But the psych evaluation that we've attached to the memo shows that she does have an intellectual disability and has suffered from extreme trauma. However, she has no other mental health conditions. And finally, just to address any concerns about abuse, again, as attached to the memo, there are 6 police reports to show that Miss Eugene did try to get help and that she did try to leave on different occasions. So I'd now like to address some of Ms. Eugene's highlights and accomplishments since coming to prison. First, despite the many challenges that she's faced as a result of domestic violence, an intellectual disability, and a life sentence, she has never given up on herself. Her institutional record at LCIW is a testament to her resilience. She has not had a single write-up in nearly 8 years. She's taken multiple domestic violence courses to heal and to learn about the dynamics that led to her incarceration. She's attempted to get her GED multiple times, and when she ultimately could not, she found other ways to improve her education. She has over 50 certificates, including for learning basic multiplication, for operating a sewing machine, and for completing a life support reentry course. Ms. Eugene also spreads joy to her community here through song and dance. She actively participates in Bible study where she connects spiritually through prayer dance, and she's the proud second place winner of LCIW's 2019 lip sync competition. Beyond these institutional achievements, Ms. Eugene has remained a dedicated and incredible mother of 5 from behind prison walls. She talks to her kids almost every day. Her sons often call for advice and encouragement, and her daughter Davana has spent almost every holiday at LCIW since she was a little girl. Their relationship has only grown stronger since she's had a daughter of her own. Today, Ms. Eugene is a grandmother of 7 and especially enjoys knitting little stuffed elephants for each of her grandchildren. Finally, as you heard, Ms. Eugene has a large reentry plan and support in place if she is granted parole today. The Parole Project would provide her with housing in Baton Rouge, and they are aware of her intellectual disability. They are prepared to provide her with specialized reentry services, including one-on-one counseling and a social worker, and they would also help reinstate her Social Security benefits. After the reentry program, Ms. Eugene would live with her daughter Davana in LaPlace, Louisiana. Over the past 20 years, Ms. Eugene has proven to be a dedicated mother, a devoted Christian, and a selfless woman who spreads joy to her community. Since the board first recognized this in 2018, her accomplishments have only grown stronger. She is a woman who, in the face of disability and trauma, proves resilient. In recognizing who she is today, we respectfully ask the board to grant Ms. Eugene's parole. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to call for the executive session.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for executive session. I do concur. So we'll be in executive session for a few moments to discuss confidential matters. Stand by, we'll be right back.
What do you guys think? I'll skip it so we don't need to wait. Let's see. Oh, by the way, I have the transcript of like the court. We'll go over that after the hearing, and then I'll also leave it in the description below. So you'll be able to check it out too.
We are back in regular session. We're prepared to vote. And this morning, Mrs. Jackson will be voting first.
All right, first I'd like to address my comment to the board. I know this is very difficult for you, very obvious from just seeing you and listening to you. I understand how you feel. It's very difficult for you. You lost someone that you love, and that's always a difficult thing. But I'm going to say to you, both of you, all of you, what I've said a number of times, people have been in your shoes. Forgiveness is not for the offender. It's for you. The ability to forgive someone frees you from anger, frees you from not being able to move forward with your life. Lack of forgiveness in this case is broken family. To the elder Mr. Florence, you have a granddaughter in this room. You have 2 grandchildren that you have no relationship with. And that's a lot. To the younger Mr. Florence, you have a half sister in this room. And you have nieces and nephews that you have no relationship with. And that's a lot. And so holding on to anger corrodes the vessel that holds the anger. And I hope today that this will start a process of reconciliation. You refer to your granddaughter, that young lady, her name is Divine. She's your granddaughter. She had 2 great-grandchildren for you. And you're missing out on the privilege of having them in your life, loving them, and having them love you. But I've reviewed this case very carefully. And there is documented evidence of domestic violence in this case. And I don't know what any of us would do if we were living in that situation where you were living in fear, or where you've been beaten, where you've been stabbed. Those are difficult circumstances to live in. She'd never had a single criminal experience in her entire life. So this was not in her character, it was not in her nature. It was a consequence, not that she made the right decision. I'm not telling you that she made the right decision. But sometimes when you've been beaten down physically and mentally and emotionally, it causes you to do things that you later regret. Ms. Eugene had expressed her remorse and her regret. And in her statement today, she didn't blame her actions on the actions of the deceased in this case. She acknowledged the pain that she's caused you, your family, but also her own family. This is a time for healing. And healing only comes through forgiveness and acceptance of the fact that sometimes there's wrong on both sides. Sometimes there's wrong on both sides. And you've got to be able to accept that. You've got to be able to heal from that. Otherwise, you're going to be angry for the rest of your life, and you're going to miss out on the pleasure of knowing your granddaughter and your great-grandchildren, your half-sister, and your niece and nephew. So my hope today is that you will take what I'm saying to heart. Now, as far as you're concerned, Ms. Eugene, you have an outstanding record. You've worked as hard as you could. You've done as much as you could possibly do. You can't get your GED because you have some disabilities that prevent you from being able to get your GED. They're very positive remarks from the prison officials. You're well thought of within the prison community. You have a strong support system. And quite frankly, I don't know what more you can do over the next several years that would make you any better than you are today. I think you have accomplished everything that the Department of Corrections has offered. You have taken advantage of those programs, you've learned, you've grown. And so my vote today would be to grant your parole to the Louisiana Parole Project with a condition, and I'm not going to say not have any contact with the foreign family because I think they need to be healing, but they have to initiate that, not you. You understand me? That's my vote.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Ms. Eugene.
But
I just want to let you know, and everyone in this hearing room, that I echo every word that Ms. Bonnie Jackson has said this morning. He is absolutely on target, and the yelling nation needs to stop. Based upon positive remarks from Warren Thomas, good time programs, governors, planning of the commutation of session, and a good transition plan with the Louisiana Parole Project. My vote is to grant the early release under the same condition as Mrs. Jackson.
All right, Ms. Eugene, I voted with you back in 2018. I'm voting with you today. My vote is to grant you parole for all the reasons that have been stated. We wish you well. Good luck.
thank you.
For the time, I think that concludes our business there. We will adjourn at 9:27. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Have a good day.
So we can unpack this. I'll go over the like court transcripts and we'll get a little bit into this. So like as some of you may already know, she had like the official hearing to see if she can get her life sentence commuted. She got approved for that. Then the governor signed off on it, and then this is the final hearing to give her parole. So that's why they didn't go so deep into the details, but I think because of still the family opposition, they did go into more than they sometimes do otherwise for a case in this stage. It's pretty amazing. I would never think in like ever that she'd be like, her personality would be someone that would win second place in a lip syncing contest. That kind of like caught me by surprise. Now this case, some might argue, could be similar to the cases going on now. Just in the sense that there was a stabbing, and then the question is what really happened. Now, what I do want to point out is, okay, so I guess let's get into this. So I'm looking at the case law, and basically what happened was that at 1 a.m. they had, or a little before 1 a.m., they had come back, both the defendant and the man who she killed had come back from a bar or club called Ouija's nightclub, and then they had gotten into a fight. And then this is where the witnesses come into play. There were two witnesses driving down the road. They saw a woman come up and get them and say, "Hey, my boyfriend's he was hit by a car." And so already she started lying, which is just not good for her, right? The people who came out knew how to do CPR. They were telling her to do CPR, how to do it. She didn't want to do it. So I believe that then she started doing it, the person who was in the car. He started to breathe again, and then they took him to the hospital. The police that came to the scene then brought her into the station. They didn't arrest her. They read her rights, and then they asked her what happened. And she then went through a series of lies. And that's just not a good look, especially when this thing goes to trial, right? Now, in court, they asked, she did take the stand, and they asked what happened, and she described that he had Similar to what she said today, except today she spoke the truth versus what she said in court, which was that, so she was being choked on the table. She went and got the knife. And what she said in court was he ran at her and impaled himself. There was only one stab wound, and it happened to go through his heart. He was over the legal limit. It was 0.18. Nowhere in the report does it document that she was on alcohol, which I think I assume that then she wasn't. They didn't find any bruising on her though. Then she had, I think, 5 of her sons or 3 of her sons were there and partially witnessed it. They didn't see everything, but they heard it and saw parts of the fight. And it was a little bit different than her testimony, but there was still altercation. And you can go and check into it. Of course, here, but then, okay, so now we're kind of left with the situation where she was just completely dishonest. She made up a bunch of lies before, during her interrogation, then even on the stand at the trial. So then you might ask, well, how do we know it's true? Was she really being abused by him? And then in this docket, they did bring up witnesses that, so there were many instances where the cops were called to the house. There are police reports of cut phone lines, of broken doors. In one instance, I think this is the most qualified, if that's the word I'm looking for. The landlord of the home, when they came to collect the rent, saw her battered. Although they never saw him actually do it to her, but they did see it. Let's see if I can find out the exact words. See if I can find it. There was also issue with the when they appealed it, with the jury being deadlocked, and then asking for information. So that she did appeal it. It seemed interesting on the grounds of appeal. You can read that in there. Where is it? I don't want to. And you can always argue, well, it's their sons. Of course they're going to make those testimony. And the police made a mistake by not questioning their sons at the scene. So the evidence shows that Mr. Fluence had a history of abusive behavior. He actually choked the defendant in September 4, 2000 in some other way, posing an immediate death or serious bodily harm. However, the Sergeant Michael Davis, the crime scene technician, testified that he did not observe any injuries on the defendant's person when he saw her at the scene. Sergeant Gary Cooper, who transported the defendant from the scene to the criminal investigation division, testified that the defendant was not bleeding and that he did not see any injuries on her person. Defendant was the only witness who testified that the defendant choked her, so her sons didn't testify to that, which could be bothersome, being that she did bring that up today, or it could be they just didn't see it. Moreover, she testifies that she was able to push Fluence away from her and go into the kitchen. At one point in her testimony, defendant said she feared for her life during the altercation. Nevertheless, she later characterized the stabbing not as an act of defense, but an accident. She testified as Mr. Fluence ran into the knife as she held it. Now, this was what she testified. This is not what she said here, which means that she's taking accountability here. which is what we look for. She said that she was being choked, but she was just sick of dealing with it, and she stabbed him. And again, it was one stab. This wasn't a frenzy. Yeah. After the couple arrived at the house, Mr. Fluence broke a broomstick in the living room, slapped her face, and shoved her against a chair. Defendant went into another room, armed herself with a knife. She returned to the living room. Her hand slipped and the knife went into his chest. So that was defendant argues that the discovery of Fluence's infidelities was a situation sufficient to deprive the average person of self-control and co-reflection. In some instances, some might be the case. However, in her statement, defendant told officers that she suspected that Fluence was being unfaithful to her for quite some time. This argument about Fluence's infidelities was apparently a continuation of the ongoing dispute between the defendant and Fluence. On the night of the stabbing, defendant provoked Mr. Fluence by questioning him about his activities. That just went a little bit off. I guess that was in their assessment of the appeal. Okay, so we just spent quite a bit of time on this. I guess to sum it up, there is evidence in there that she was being abused for quite some time. I only went through a portion of it. She, at her own admission today, and according to the jury, was not in fear for her life. She just was pissed off and she stabbed him. It ended up going through his heart and killing him. She then did lie about it, and all of those things adding up to her getting a long sentence. Now she served 20 years. And do you think that she should get out now? And there are many people that would say, yeah, she was a battered woman. And because of those circumstances, 20 years is a suffice sentence. She had no prior criminal record. She had no drug or alcohol problems. It's interesting, especially with the timing of the cases going on now. What's it called? How am I forgetting it? I add it in the comment section, but we all know what we're talking about, right? Except she said she threw a knife, but it's going to come down to a similar situation where it's going to be, was there abuse? Was she afraid to accumulate, culminate to something more? Is she going to get a life sentence? Is it going to be a 20-year sentence? I don't know if it's really fair to align the two, but it's kind of similar. Miss Jackson really did say it best. She's so good at this. Forgiveness is not for the offender, it's for you. Forgiveness is not for the offender, it's for you. When you forgive someone, you're not doing it for the offender, you're doing it for yourself. I've heard others say that in the comment section. I've heard victims say that in the comment section. And the idea that the people holding the grudge, they're missing out on their grandchildren, they're missing out on their nephews, their nieces, they're missing out on all of that pain and suffering. Now, the victim's father, I felt, was being kind of fair in what he was asking for. He wasn't saying he wanted her to be there forever. He said he wanted her to be there for another 10 years. I can't fault him for that at all. It's his son that he lost. And then you can argue his son's being kind of dragged through the mud by being accused of all of these things, whether it's true or not true. Maybe the father has no idea about it, right? I feel for him, but to miss out on all of your great grandkids. Is it any place for a judge to tell someone that? That's a different question, but I can understand it. Now, this was definitely a loaded one. I know we're going to have a lot of people with different opinions, and that's the beauty of this channel that it's okay for us to have different opinions and still get along and respect each other. With that, I will let you go.